What is up, guys? Today we are back with a brand new deck tech video. So today we're going to be going over one of my favorite decks of all time, actually, the Warlock. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the Warlock focuses on having a really low curve. Basically, it's an aggro deck, so you want to have lots and lots of minions out on the field at all times. And there are some things that can make that very easy, and there are some cards that enable other cards in the deck, and it all works together to be a really synergistic type of aggro deck, and it's really a lot of fun to play. So first off, we want to go over the early drops. So you have 16 cards for 2 mana or less in the deck. So you have your Power Overwhelming, that's an enabler for Nerubian Egg, which is very obvious. Very popular as well. You probably have seen that in many of your games. We also have Abusive Sergeant, which is another enabler for Nerubian Egg. That said, Power Overwhelming and Abusive are also really solid plays just to end the game or just get some solid damage out on your opponent. Flame Imp's just an early game pick, honestly. It's slowly become less good as time goes on. There are more and more cards that can take it out and maintain value. So it's become just this sort of take 3 damage and get a 3 solid damage out on your opponent deal. And then if you can get more out of it, great. But if you can't, then it's just some solid damage and you're playing aggro, so that's important. We have Void Walkers, just taunts early game are very important. Dark Bomb, just to get rid of your normal threats, maybe some quick early taunts that you might see. Taunts that have 3 HP aren't super popular unless you're going in a mirror match with another Warlock, but that said, it can help close up some gaps and also do 3 damage without any strings attached to anything on the field, including your opponent, their hero. So it has its uses. It definitely has its uses, and for 2 mana you can't really beat it. So you have Direwolf, another enabler yet again for Nerubian Egg, because you want to have like 5 or 6 enablers. Means that if you get one, you probably already have an enabler in your hand, so you can play it and then get value out of it, get your Nerubian out, and basically that is one of the most snowbally value cards you can get in the entire deck, really. Having a 4/4, like one of the really common examples I have is that you play a turn 1 Voidwalker, okay? Turn 2 Nerubian, turn 3 Void Terror, and Void Terror is another card that's really solid in this deck. It's only a one of because there are only a few cards that really benefit from having it, but it's really solid in its own, because basically then you have a 4/4, a 1/3, and a 3/5 out on the field with very little effort on turn 3, and that's really solid. The only thing I can think of that really challenges that at all is the new dragon deck, when you can get a whelp out and then a 2/4 out on turn 2. So it's like a 2/5 and then power word, and I mean it has potential to trade with that combo, but that in particular is my favorite combo in this deck, other than possibly Power Overwhelming into Void Terror as well, which is really disgusting. Like attacking someone face and then Power Overwhelming, or Power Overwhelming and then attacking someone face and then Void Terror is just disgusting. It is fantastic. Love those combos. Anyways, moving on. So it has a low curve because of aggro. Obviously, we've went over a few of the early drops. So moving on into some of the higher drops. First off, we have the Imp Gang Boss, which is just a solid card, and it does fill the board pretty easily. You can use your enablers to make it so it can take out bigger threats and then maintain some board presence, which is extremely important in Zoo decks, and even more important in the new post TGT Zoo deck, because it does have a few cards that you can run in it that actually do take a lot of advantage from having a solid board presence. So we'll get on to that, but starting out, you have your Imp Gang Boss, which is fantastic. You have your Void Terror, which is an enabler, and a very good one at that. You have your Implosion. Implosion we're only running one of, because you normally would run 2, but that's what changed with this beautiful new card called Gormok the Impaler. Implosion has become a frequent one of, because normally you're going to have more than 4 minions out on the board at once. That's normally a usual thing that's going to happen with Zoolock, hence the name Zoolock. I mean, it just makes sense that that would happen. So you're going to drop your Gormok, and you're always going to get the 4 damage targetable out of it and have a 4/4 on the field. Now, Implosion, it can be better in metas where there isn't very much removal. That's the one thing that really chimes in is like a possible switch out for Gormok. But in the meta that we have right now, where everything's either like, I guess, combo based, like Secret Paladin, for example, in the time of the making of this video, has become an extremely powerful deck and archetype that is definitely something to be reckoned with. So I think that we definitely need to take that into account when making a deck like this, and having all of the easily clearable minions isn't necessarily good for that. Now, when you're going against other aggro decks or even a mirror match, then Implosion might be better because you have multiple bodies to spread across multiple aggro targets, which probably have either Divine Shield or less health than usual, so you'll be able to take them out, whereas you might have to trade more with Gormok. But most of the time, Gormok is going to be better, so that's why we switched out an Implosion for it. So we have Defender of Argus, again, a very good enabler for your Nerubian Egg. Also very, very good for creating more value out of your Implosion, creating more value out of really anything else you can play that's going to have 1 health to 3 health, because anything else that you're going to be playing can benefit from having more damage and more health. Being a Zoo deck, you're always going to be able to take advantage of that, which is why it's a 2-of in this deck. So we have Voidcaller, and Voidcaller is here to enable the rest of the deck, the late game, because the late game actually can be played at such a better curve that it's ridiculous. The 4-drop can enable a 9-drop or a 5-drop, which is really the important thing here. So you have your Voidcaller, you drop your Voidcaller, you have Mal'Ganis in hand, or you have a Doomguard in hand, and you can do a lot with that. That has a lot of potential. You can Void Terror into it, which is really good. You can attack with it, you can go face, you can clear something with it, and Void Terror into it, bring out Mal'Ganis, and then have a solid presence on the board, not to mention immunity, which is really, really, really powerful, especially in a meta that's combo based, because it counters Patron, because even if you get a full board of Patrons out, you still have to take out a 9/7, and 7 health is relatively difficult to get rid of unless you have a Frothing to go with the Patron. That needs more mana, which means that the combo is going to happen most likely at a later time in the game, which gives you more of a chance to win. So it has a lot of potential to win games purely on being a 4-drop alone, and the fact that it's a 3/4 in itself also does have some value, because if it had 2 attack, right, then that would suck. 2 power would suck. And that would be horrible, because it would enable a lot of opponents' combos, like a lot of very popular combos, and the most notable obviously being Grim Patron. But the fact of the matter is, it has 3, and there are very, very few combos that can still work with a Mal'Ganis out. So Mal'Ganis is definitely also one of your staples. You're going to want to pick one of them up. Dr. Boom, I've found a lot of success with Dr. Boom, because I found more and more that with this deck, you can play it really heavy aggro and almost go face all the time, or you can play it with more of a board control nature. And that's really what you have to do most of the time. I have seen people play Zoolock in more of a face-oriented nature and more of a archetype that is akin to Face Hunter. But I've also seen more of control playstyle. That's actually the playstyle that I have when I'm making and playing this deck. That said, I did get a lot of this deck from a popular list that came out in the meta snapshot for Tempo Storm. So this isn't exactly my own creation, because obviously there were other people that contributed to making the deck, but I do think that my look on it is somewhat unique, and that's why I'm making this video. So we have Loatheb to just mainly to keep Flame Strikes from happening, but other board clears, I mean, honestly, any 5-drop board clear that you're going to see, any 5-drop, if you're going to see your Holy Nova, like, you want to be able to protect your full field of minions against that, so you want to have your Loatheb to be able to prevent board wipes. You don't want your full board of 1 to 3 health minions to get board wiped. That would be awful. So that's why Loatheb comes in, and it's proven to be extremely useful in that sense in many, many, many cases. So definitely keep that in mind. Doomguard for your obvious Void Collar, bringing it out, and not to mention, it's a great finisher because usually when you get to the end game with Zoolock, you're going to end up having 1 or 2 cards in your hand, and if you draw into it, or you draw into something that can enable an Nerubian or something, and then you can play that, and then play the Doomguard right away, then you can get a lot of value out of it, and while maintaining the negative effect of losing 2 cards in your hand, because having it in the late game means that you're probably going to be able to get it out there without losing too many cards, if any at all. So it definitely has a lot of uses. Even if you can't get it out with a Void Collar, or you use up one of them on Mal'Ganis and you end up with only 1 to bring out 2. So that case in particular is fine. You still want to bring 2 of them in, and I can't think of anything right now off the top of my head that would replace 1 Doomguard. Honestly, it really doesn't make sense, because as an aggro deck you're going to be ending games very early anyways, so there's not necessarily a reason to even think about replacing it, because having 2 of them in your deck just means you're going to draw 1 of them quicker, and usually it's an ender anyways, and you might not even see the other Doomguard very often. Now, in the case that you do see it, it kind of sucks if you don't have the Void Collars to bring them out, or they get silenced, or whatever. But it still works fine. It's still okay. So you can say that this deck has a kind of higher curve to it, like, as well. But because you have the Enabler and the Void Collar, the late game isn't really there. You don't need to worry about the late game, because most likely you're ending the game by turn 6 to 7. And Mal'Ganis can be cheated out on turn 4 or 5. So there's not really something you need to be worried about as far as your higher plays, because they're going to be able to be cheated out very easily. And in the case that you go to late game and you need to drop, turn 7, turn 8, turn 9, you have your Dr. Boom, and obviously he's extremely balanced and can be used in a variety of ways to even out the board. We'll just put it that way. So there are lots and lots of ways that this deck can work to synergize with itself. There are some less obvious ways, like the power overwhelming into Void Terror, that people didn't necessarily see, or don't even necessarily see when they're playing their own variants of the deck. But that is why you bring in the Void Terror, and that's why I definitely recommend dropping 1 in your deck, because it is so useful as an enabler, and just to get some extra power off the power overwhelming, bait out your removals, your hard removals. And the only thing I can think of is that it wouldn't really go well against is Priest, because Priest has a Shadow Word Death that can just knock it out really, really easily for cheap. So that's the only situation I really see as not being optimal. But in, the other classes, you're obviously going to have some crazy values. So, you have 8 classes that are going to be easily able to value that trade. So that about covers it. If you guys want to check out the deck, you didn't quite catch my 1 and 2 ofs in my explanations or whatever, you want to check it out, build it yourself, go ahead and check out the Hearthstone link that I have linked below. It's going to be up in full there. I might be writing like a guide to go with it, with like mulligans and everything, because I didn't really go in depth on that, and it's definitely something that's important with this deck, because without mulliganing correctly, you can actually kill your win rate with this. So you want to be getting certain drops out early. You want to be coining the right things out early to maintain board control early on, so you can build into your late game. So you can build into dropping your Gormok. So you can build into being able to drop Mal'Ganis and feel good about getting the value out of it that you need to. There's a lot of ways that works, and it's not very obvious right off the bat, as is many of the synergies of the deck. So it requires some explanation, and I think I'm going to write something up about it. I also will probably make another video to go along with this, but this is more of just a deck tech explanation sort of thing. So if you guys want to make the deck, then you can go ahead and do that. And then if you want explanations for how the deck works and what you need to be looking for against each individual matchup, then maybe you can watch the next video or check for what I wrote about it. Don't have that set in stone yet, so just check both. If there's another if this isn't a playlist with other videos, then I probably decided to make a video about it. So that about covers it. I think that's about it. Check out check out Hearthstone if you want to make the deck. And I think that's going to be it. So until next time, guys, hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.